Hi class, welcome to the lecture Understanding the Performance Assessment Project. This lecture will help you understand how to do the best that you can on the Performance Assessment Project. The purpose of this project is to teach you how to design rubrics that are aligned with standards and learning targets. Your draft of this project is due on November 22nd and the final is due on November 29th. It's worth 15% of your grade. Everything that I'm going to show you is available on the course site. First, go to Course Content and click on the Major Assignments folder. Inside the Major Assignments folder, you'll see a list of all the major assignments in this course. Click on the Performance Assessment Project folder. Once you're in the folder, you'll find a number of helpful and important resources that will help you complete the project. Let's go through the list. You'll find the instructions and the template for this project. It's important to note that you must do your work on the template for this project. The reason for this is when you don't do your work on the template, you forget parts. So you must submit it using this file, the instructions and template. The second thing you'll see is the rubric that I'll use for grading. The third is this video, Understanding the Performance Assessment Project. You'll also see the PowerPoint that was used to create this video. You'll see the most common errors handout that we used in class. I encourage you to use this handout to see what to avoid when you're doing your rubric. And finally, you'll see the link to submit your paper. Let's take a look at the instructions and template for the project. Number one, the thing that you have to start with, just like you did for your quiz project, is the standard. So think of a standard and the grade level that you would be doing this project at. Make sure your standard is at grade level 2 or higher. Number 2 is the learning target. Your learning target should start with students will be able to, followed by an action verb. What is it that you want students to be able to do? Students will be able to do long division with 3-digit numbers with 80% accuracy. Might be a good learning target. Remember that a learning target always has a target for success. In the example I just provided, if there are 10 questions involving 3-digit long division, an 80% success rate would mean that students would have to get 8 out of 10 correct for you to consider that they've mastered the learning target. Number 3 is context. What school might this be done in? What grade level? How many students might there be? Are there any gifted students or students with IEPs or 504 plans? What subject? What have the students been taught so far about the topic and what might come next? Be sure to provide a complete context description. In a paragraph or more, describe the lesson or lessons that you might teach to help your students master the learning target. What would you have students do? This doesn't have to be pages, but it should be detailed enough so that the reader can understand the steps the teacher has taken to teach the material. Number 5 is the performance task. This is what do students do after the lesson to demonstrate mastery. It should be something that they have to perform. So it shouldn't just be a math problem that they solve. It should be something they have to do. Write an essay, create a skit, create a PowerPoint, solving complex math problems with multiple steps where you're giving credit for each part of the problem, and more. If it's too simple, you can't create a rubric around it. The question to ask yourself is, can it just simply be marked right or wrong? Then it's probably not worthy of a rubric. Write a description of your performance task here. Remember that your performance task should align with your lesson, and those two should align with your learning target and your standard. Next, you're going to design a teacher rubric. Put your rubric in a table. Make sure that your rubric is well aligned to the task and the grade level. Make sure that your criteria, or your rows, the things that you are assessing, and the levels of performance, your columns, are appropriate and clear. Look at your textbook for guidance. Make sure that your criteria are well aligned with objectives and standards. Make sure that the descriptions of the criteria are teachable, clear, identifiable, and most importantly, measurable. Make sure the continuum between levels of performance are clear and appropriate. This means that each level, each column, whether it's needs improvement or developing or good or excellent, they're all distinguished between each other, that the rater would have no trouble saying this is a good paper or this is a needs improvement paper. Make sure that the rubric is well aligned with the task. So everything has to line up. The standard, the learning target, the lesson, the performance task, and the rubric. You're going to also develop a second rubric. This one is one that you might give to students. And it's always good practice when students are doing a project like this that you give them the rubric in advance, like I'm giving you the rubric later in this lecture. Your student rubric should look just like your teacher rubric, but it should be in kid-friendly, written in age-appropriate language. For young students, particularly for elementary students, I like to word the student rubric with I statements. For example, I made few spelling errors. I completely stated my opinion. I was able to perform the division. Students respond better to this, and you'll get your reading level down to where it needs to be. You're going to finish your student rubric, and then you're going to run a Flisch-Kincaid grade level analysis as we've learned to do in class, and enter the grade level here. Now what's important to note is you have a little bit of flexibility here. Let's say you're doing a 5th grade standard and grade level. You cannot use more than a +1 grade level as a rubric. So if you're doing 5th grade, your student rubric should be targeted to no higher than 6th grade. If you're doing 10th grade, your student rubric should be targeted no higher than 11th grade. It can be lower, but it can't be higher because students won't be able to understand it. Number 8 is justification. This is why you chose either a holistic or an analytic rubric, and you must provide a justification with a citation from the textbook. Number 9 is a reflection, as you've done in other assignments. What went well? What did not go well? What surprised you? What did you learn that you can take forward into your classroom? That last question is particularly important. Students sometimes skip that. So I want to hear all of your experiences, but most importantly, what did you learn from this assignment that you can take into your classroom? Let's look at the grading rubric for this assignment. You'll see it's 3 columns: missing or needs improvement, fair, and excellent. The first thing I'm going to do is look at your standard. Did you include the standard? And is it fully spelled out? Did you provide the source? The second thing is the learning target. Is it clearly written and aligned with the lesson and the performance task? Does it have a target for success? The third is the context. Did you describe completely the setting that this would take place and what the students have learned that prepare them to learn this? Number 4 is a description of the lesson. Was it detailed enough so that it's clearly understood how the material, how the learning target will be taught? Number 5 is the performance task. What is it that students will have to do to demonstrate mastery of content? The sixth criterion is the teacher rubric. Whether it's clear, whether the levels of performance can be distinguished from each other. The seventh is whether the teacher rubric is aligned to the task. So for example, if you were asking students to create a PowerPoint, but you were assessing them on the speech for that PowerPoint, that wouldn't be a good alignment. The eighth criterion is the student rubric, whether it's very clear and aligns well with the teacher rubric. Again, the student rubric should mirror the teacher rubric, but be written in child-friendly language. Number 9 is your Flesch-Kincaid grade level analysis, whether you have it, whether it's not too high. Remember, it has to be at or only one grade level higher than the students are. It can be lower, but not too much higher. Whether there's justification for the teacher rubric and it was supported by course readings or lectures or the textbook. Whether you've included a reflection that's meaningful, your spelling, grammar, and professionalism, and finally your rubric presentation, which should look aligned and in a table. That's it. Any questions, please feel free to email me at nhalbrenner@mercy.edu. Thanks, everybody.